Hey guys, the Super Review Show for another editorial video. I wanted to do one of these for a little while. I just couldn't think of one off the top of my head, but I finally thought of one a little while ago, and here we go. This editorial is a musical-themed editorial about how Bon Jovi, a hair metal hard rock band, survived grunge. Now, I was looking around on YouTube. I couldn't really find anything of this specifically, but there is one thing that an interview with Jon Bon Jovi back in early 2020, how he talked about this part of his career and how they were going to go through in the early 90s and how they made Keep the Faith and stuff like that, and how they basically survived grunge and became bigger than grunge, whereas a lot of other bands did not. So just to give you an overall idea of what I'm talking about, basically, so Bon Jovi came onto the scene in 1984. They came on with Runaway and they reached top 40. And then they released another album called 7800 Degrees Fahrenheit, which is a really underrated album, in my opinion. I think it's a very underrated album in general. There's a lot of good songs in there. So it's In and Out of Love, Silent Night, really good stuff on it. And then they had their biggest and most commercial success with Slippery When Wet, with Living on a Prayer, You Give Love a Bad Name, Wanted Dead or Alive, Never Say Goodbye, Wild in the Streets, Let It Rock. There's a pretty big album. So, and with two number one hit singles with You Give Love a Bad Name and Living on a Prayer. Then the fourth album was New Jersey, which had Bad Medicine, I'll Be There For You, Lay Your Hands on Me, Born to Be My Baby. Again, filling that like hard rock, not necessarily hair metal, but somewhat of hair metal. Like vibe. So that was 1988 that album came out. And then going into the 90s, Bon Jovi was kind of not really together at the time. I mean, they didn't officially break up. They were on a temporary hiatus, if you will, in 1990. Jon Bon Jovi went on to write the Young Guns soundtrack and had his fifth number one hit single with Shot Down in a Blaze of Glory. You know that one, for those who've seen the movie. Or on the radio as well. And the band at the time was just shot. They were all tired. They're like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden, grunge came along in, 92. And they released an album in the early 90s called Keep the Faith. Keep the Faith was a very pivotal album for that band. Because you have to think about this for a second. Bon Jovi at the time got lumped into the Motley Crues, the Poisons, the Def Leppards. They got lumped into that, like, Freer anyone or Extreme anyone. Like, they got lumped into that hair metal, like, feeling of, like, the Sunset Strip. And that was not his. Jon Bon Jovi has said on the record. I'm going to leave a link for this interview in the description of the video so you guys can check it out. And toward the end of the interview with the guy over it's on in the UK on the BBC. It is, so Def Leppard, Motley Crue, Poison, Rat, Joan Jett, Warrant, all these hair metal bands, only a few have survived grunge, because grunge was such a monumental musical change in pop culture. Let's be real. When Nirvana's Nevermind came out, it wiped, like Motley Crue was selling out stadiums. And they went back to clubs. That's the effect that Nirvana and Pearl Jam had on the music industry. Now, people still to this day are like, oh my God, I hate Nirvana, I hate Pearl Jam, whatever. Look, I've said this on record before. I love music. I have my own personal tastes. Personally, the hair metal scene come 1989 kind of got watered down a lot, to be honest with you, with third grade versions of Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, Def Leppard, Poison, Rat, like later Kiss stuff. To be honest, it all got kind of wiped out completely. And to be honest, it was so watered down. It made sense why it shouldn't have been there not in the first place, but after that time. And once Nirvana came out in 91, 92, these albums with Pearl Jam and Nirvana and then Soundgarden, they just changed everything, and for the better or worse. People still hate it, but hey, that's what happened. You cannot change history. History is history. So, but Jon Bon Jovi said in this interview, and like I said, the link is in the description of this video, so you guys can check it out. But he basically said that how he survived grunge was, he said, quote, the best remained of the big band of the hard rock band era. So Bon Jovi and primarily Guns N' Roses not only survived but thrived in grunge because they did not copy grunge. Let's not forget, Motley Crue made I don't know the name of the album, but after Dr. Feelgood they made like a grunge album. Kiss made a grunge album. Def Leppard made Slang. These bands were copying Alice in Chains and all this other stuff, and it was your fan base. Their fan bases turned on them. Like, why would you do that? You're Def Leppard. Why would you do that? Metallica was their own engine. They just did their own thing. But it's just so fascinating for me to look back and I wasn't alive then. I'm turning 23 on Friday, so I don't really know that much. But I've read stories about how like Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails came onto the scene. Like, here we go, man. So Bon Jovi told this story. John told this story about how he was recording "Keep the Faith," and there's two things about this interview that I find interesting. Number one is that they were not doing a grunge album. They were not going to copy grunge because he is not a trend setter. No, sorry, he's not a trend follower. He is a trend setter. I love Bon Jovi a lot because their albums have not copied anything. They try and stick to their own original style and original sound and whatnot. I like that a lot. When Def Leppard made Slang, no one gave a crap about Slang. No one gave a crap about Motley Crue's grunge album or Kiss's Carnival of Souls. Anyone out there? So put it that way. And so when Bon Jovi when they were recording "Keep the Faith," the story goes that their keyboardist David Bryant, who's a phenomenal keyboardist, went out to Seattle and said, "I just saw this band Pearl Jam in Temple of the Dog, and it was amazing, but I don't want to be it." And then John's like, "I agree with you. I don't want to be it." And he's talking about the story of it, but basically what he's trying to say is Bon Jovi was really the only one that survived grunge from that era, aside from Guns N' Roses with Use Your Illusion 1 and 2. That's a whole different thing. But then the next album was a greatest hits album in 1994. Anyone with Always? Someday I'll Be Saturday Night. Anyone? Always was in the top 5 of the Hot 100 for 20 weeks. It was like, always. I can't sing right now, but that. And the other single, Someday I'll Be Saturday Night, prompted that album to sell 18 million copies, establishing Bon Jovi as another major name in the mid-90s. Then they did another album called These Days, which is a little bit of a darker type of record. They weren't chasing ballads. They weren't doing anything commercial. They were just they had a hit off it called This Ain't a Love Song. But they established, it's an evolution of their band. They went from a melodic hard rock band to, in the 90s, rediscovering themselves as something, reinventing themselves. Then in the mid to late 90s, they were headlining Wembley Stadium with Van Halen when Van Halen released Balance in 95. So, it's an interesting story. And then on top of that, when 2000 hit, It's My Life came out, and that was a big hit. For them, it wasn't number one. It was number one. But it stayed on the charts for a long time, so people got used to it. It's funny. People had so much, Bon Jovi has had such success. It's insane, but it's important to remember where they came from. Because in the early 90s, they could have been primed for a wipeout. Extreme got hit hard. My dad saw Extreme live, and they played at a very small, I'm not going to tell you where, but a very small local venue. They can't sell out Madison Square Garden anymore because no one cares about them anymore. And it's unfortunate, but because for those bands, Extreme was really good with Porno Graffiti was a fantastic record. More Than Words Anyone, Wholehearted Anyone. So overall, Bon Jovi survived grunge. And then on top of that, in 2005, Who Says You Can't Go Home? A lot of people who are my age remember that song when it was on the radio. It was number 25 in the Hot 100. Bon Jovi, really? 2005, really? They're the first band to have a number one country album. Then they released a country album with Lost Highway. So evolution. So you can read up on this online, but I wanted to make a really condensed video on this topic specifically because I think it's very fascinating about how Bon Jovi survived grunge and then kept evolving to make themselves one of the biggest bands on the planet and establish themselves as that for years to come, and hopefully many more. I love John. I think he's done a great job so far. But like I said, he would have been primed for Wipeout if he didn't. If he copied grunge, I think we would never heard of Bon Jovi again, other than Living on a Prayer and You Give Love a Bad Name. But Bed of Roses, In These Arms, like these are pretty big hits in the early '90s, but they're not grunge-esque songs. They're just regular rock songs with a little bit of like a twist on them. So, and he was able to do that. So, I don't know. Just I want to get your guys' opinion on this. Are you a Bon Jovi fan? Are you a fan of grunge? What do you think about the story I said? And like I said, if you want to hear more, click the link in the description of this video for the actual interview that I'm talking about with Jon Bon Jovi. It's towards the end of the video. It's from the BBC over in England. So if for all of my English audiences, you're welcome. But for all of your editorial videos and many more, keep it locked on the Super Review Show. The J-Man is off to rock. We'll see you guys later.